For millions of years, Hell's Creek was one of the most dangerous places on Earth. A world where the king of the dinosaurs ruled the land, where raptors took down smaller prey options, and where the herbivores could turn you into paste if they took a disliking to you. Survival here required speed, strength, and a ruthless instinct to stay alive. Unfortunately, today's contestant has 1, 2, carry the 4, pretty much none of those things. For today's April Fool's video, you'll be meeting a familiar face, Barney the Dinosaur. We're doing this. He's a purple singing, dancing beacon of positivity, but he's also a creature not designed for survival, but rather to teach children how to share and clean up after themselves. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was the goat of our childhood, but today we're throwing him into the brutal, unforgiving world of the Cretaceous to see if he could last more than 5 minutes. Will his imagination save him, or will this place introduce him to a very different kind of extinction event? Well, there's only one way to find out, but of course don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us have ourselves a fun April Fool's. Placing Barney the Dinosaur into the Late Cretaceous is, at a first glance, looking to end up pretty badly. At only 1.82 meters or 6 feet tall and weighing around 90 kilograms or 200 pounds, he is dwarfed by nearly everything around him. His purple coloration, though great for entertainment, would make him stand out like a neon sign to every predator in the ecosystem. However, Barney is far from the ordinary dinosaur, if he even counts as one at all. For starters, he claims to be at least 200 million years old, which would make him far older than even Tyrannosaurus Rex itself. It is uncertain if Barney actually needs to eat, sleep, or drink, but his favorite food is peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with a glass of milk. On top of this, Barney's more than just a friendly face. He's actually way stronger than I initially thought. From my research for this joke video, it turns out that he seems to have reality warping powers influenced by his imagination. Before we jump into that, we'll talk about his physicals. He was able to lift 453 kilograms or 1,000 pounds, and he could also move to the point of being a blur to the human eye in short bursts. And I mean, come on, his jumps can even cause the ground to shake. Barney's abilities are bizarre and potentially game-breaking in a prehistoric survival scenario. His powers seem to be fueled by his imagination, allowing him to alter reality itself. However, their effectiveness may depend on external factors, most notably the presence of others. But here's a basic breakdown of what he can do. Barney has demonstrated the ability to have reality warping powers, shaping his surroundings, conjuring objects out of thin air, and even manipulating the weather. This could let him turn this ecosystem into something far less dangerous. However, there are some limits to his powers, as although he can influence living things, it does not look like he can fully change a living organism such as humans and animals. Barney can also teleport through vanishing into a burst of sparkles, instantly reappearing somewhere else. This could allow him to escape potential predators before they even strike. Finally, Barney's presence has also been shown to make others break into spontaneous song and dance. If this ability does extend to the dinosaurs, then he could disrupt the natural predator-prey behaviors, possibly preventing attacks entirely. But an important part that shouldn't be overlooked is his overall personality. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. He's very friendly, happy, and a thoughtful dinosaur that would be unprepared in the state that we see him in his appearances. I mean, Barney's fundamentally opposed to harming others, which means he would avoid attacking a threat, even if he had the power to do so. Instead, he would likely attempt to befriend or pacify his would-be attackers. Barney's survival in this ecosystem depends on the extent of his reality warping abilities, whether that be out of certain restrictions or because it's not in his nature to do so. Either way, one thing is for certain, Barney doesn't belong here, and his presence in this ecosystem would be the most surreal event in the history of the Mesozoic, and arguably the most random thing I've put on the channel so far. Anyways, let's get into the environment. North America in the Late Cretaceous was quite unique. Instead of sprawling grasslands, the land was dominated by lush forests, winding rivers, and vast coastal plains. Temperatures could soar up to 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, creating a warm, humid climate perfect for life to thrive. Now, I think all things considered, Barney would be quite okay with this environment. I mean, even in the coldest of climates, all he needs to do is put on some earmuffs and whip over a scarf, and then there you go, he's good to go. So the warm climate of the Cretaceous would be a walk in the park for him. However, he's still more used to an urban environment, which would mean it would not be the most perfect place to initially live in. This would earn him an environmental score of 10 out of 10. I mean, if he has any significant problems with the environment, he could always use his imagination to make a more developed home or area that would suit his needs and desires. Now, Barney's diet poses a unique challenge. Unlike other large theropods of the late Cretaceous, he doesn't appear to be a predator at all. He seems to be more omnivorous, consuming human foods. And I mean, throughout the whole series, we don't see him eat a random bird or lizard. This suggests that in a more primal environment, he would likely sway towards a herbivorous diet. Though this ecosystem wasn't exactly a herbivore's paradise either. While there were plenty of plants, much of the available vegetation was tough and adapted to support massive dinosaurs with specialized digestive systems. So what could Barney eat from here? Well, if Barney is limited to a diet of soft plants, he might struggle in a world dominated by ferns, cycads, and conifers. Grazing animals have specialized teeth to grind down through tough plants, but that's something that Barney lacks. His best bet would be to seek out the most digestible plant material, such as early prehistoric fruits. There is also the possibility that Barney could throw away his friendly manners behind him and actually hunt down some smaller creatures. The most likely route in this would be conjuring up a fishing rod and partaking in some good old-fashioned fishing. However, if it is something that I can't really imagine him doing, it's hunting small innocent dinosaurs. I mean, it's just not in his nature to do harm to others, which though poses a disadvantage for him, just means the little buggers will be all good. And there is also the fact that he could alter or summon physical objects at will, which means he could change random things into food. So what would Barney score? I think that our purple friend gets a dietary score of 10 out of 10, basically because he barely eats, and when he does eat, he could create food for himself, eat random soft plants, or even go fishing. He's pretty good. Still, in this environment, there would be the combined threats of herbivores and carnivores alike, which would both go after our purple friend. Take a Montosaurus or Triceratops for example. Both of these herbivores could vary quite a bit in size, with their heaviest estimates placing them over 10 tons. Now, I'm gonna be honest, a giant purple and green two-legged creature that kinda looks like a T-Rex is something that they would want to take out immediately. When it comes to Ankylosaurus, while it does have a strong swing with its tail, it would have been rather slow, and so I think that Barney would have no issues with it. Small predators like the potentially valid but very questionable at best Dakota Raptor measured around 5.5 meters or 18 feet long with a weight of around 220 kilograms or 485 pounds. Armed with a classic sickle claw that could slice right through flesh, it could pose quite a bit of a problem if it ambushes Barney. But the true king of this era was of course Tyrannosaurus rex, at over 12 meters or 40 feet long, standing over 4 meters or 13 feet tall at the hips, and with possible weights exceeding 10 tons in the largest individuals, T-Rex was an apex predator like no other. Its biforce, estimated between 18,000 and 61,000 newtons, was the most powerful of any known terrestrial animal. I mean, if we're being honest, T-Rex could legitimately chomp Barney in half. Its massive teeth weren't just serrated, but truly built for crushing bone. The issue with Barney here is his overall structure. He looks too much like a theropod and looks so different from anything else that he would be instantly targeted by the larger herbivores. However, he'd be too small and not enough of a theropod to be in a decent position against the other predators of this region. So what does Barney score when it comes to resistance to competition and threats? Well, I think he scores a solid 8 out of 10. Don't get me wrong, he can be certainly ambushed by predators or have a surprise encounter with a vicious herbivore, but he'd have the experience and the abilities to protect himself a majority of the time. Unlike other contestants that we've had, it's not about winning a straight up confrontation. For Barney, it is truly not that deep, and he would just vanish as soon as he could. So let's get into his survival scenario. Dropped into Hell's Creek, Barney's more than just out of place. He's an anomaly that defies the very essence of this world. The Late Cretaceous isn't a playground, and it certainly isn't a stage for sing-alongs. It was an intense ecosystem where the weak didn't get second chances. And Barney? He somehow tips the scales of being unexpectedly powerful but lacks the initial will required. His problem begins the moment he arrives. Everything about him is wrong. His scent is foreign, his movements unnatural, and worst of all, a blaring shade of purple that turns him into a beacon for any curious eyes and hungry mouths around. In a world where even the smallest weaknesses is exploited, he's not just vulnerable, he is an open question, and in this region, questions are often answered with physical force. Yet he's not entirely helpless. His reality warping powers are still with him, but they are not absolute. He cannot snap his fingers and erase threats like Thanos. We have not seen him forcefully, physically altering anyone, at least to my knowledge. I mean, there's a lot of Barney out there and I cannot watch all of it. Simply put, he cannot turn a Tyrannosaurus into a harmless plush toy, but he can influence, nudge the world in subtle ways. A charging Triceratops might hesitate, its rage dulled by an inexplainable feeling of calm. A prowling Dakota raptor might feel themselves swaying in rhythm, their aggression disrupted by a strange, unfamiliar melody whispering through their minds. His ability bends the rules, but it doesn't break them. In this ecosystem, that may not be enough. I mean, he's a fairly sized purple dinosaur. An apex predator like a T-Rex can ambush him and, well, end him in a single bite. In a face-to-face showdown with a T-Rex, he'd likely just use his short burst of speed to react and get himself to safety. Then if that didn't work, then he would have to use his powers to influence it. I mean, let's be honest, there is no universe that Barney is physically fighting a T-Rex and, well, winning. Being the fun-loving dinosaur he is, he would likely search for some food items, but let's be honest, he would be pressed to find anything. The plants of the Cretaceous were just too tough for him to get his human-like teeth around. The meat was no better, being raw and fought over by other carnivores that were far more vicious than him. He'd quite quickly learn that he did not like either of the food sources available to him, and hence he would likely spend a lot of his time fishing or using his magic to conjure up the food that he really desired. Could I have just said he conjured up food in the first place? I mean, sure, but Barney's an opportunistic character that does like adventuring, so he would likely look around first. And so I think the real question isn't if Barney would survive, it is if he could thrive, and personally, I don't think so, at least in the beginning. Most of the time he would question his deepest morals. Could he bring himself to chase and strike? Given the chance, would he lunge at helpless hatchlings? And well, no, he wouldn't. I mean, it's Barney that we are talking about here. I think for the next few million years, he would sort of act like a safety net for a lot of the less fortunate dinosaurs out there, particularly making friends of sorts with the Oviraptorosaurs. Still, I think he would give assistance to any dinosaur that would need it. Sure, in the beginning he would be bored, sad, and potentially even scared, but as he adapts back into this more primal environment, he would get more used to it, and its inhabitants would have to get more used to a lot more sing-alongs. Or I mean, there is also the chance they could simply stand still, motionless, in the darkness, being a mere toy in a place where no curious dinosaur would ever think to seek him. Through this, Barney the Dinosaur gets an ultimate survival score of 28 out of 30, nearly a perfect score. And I mean, to be fair, we could just argue since he is technically 200 million years old, he'd already survived through all the extinction events that came before us. But that seemed more like a statement without too much thought into it, and it would just take away from the fun of the video. Anyways though, we've reached the end of this video, and though I actually did start this as a joke, I was pretty surprised of just how powerful Barney truly is. Anyways, have a safe but fun April Fools, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.